So with the Celtics with a nice chance to grab a 3-1 lead and head home, we've seen that time and time again throughout the playoffs. That Game 4 is sort of decisive in terms of momentum swing. What do the Celtics need to do to bounce back from this devastating loss, Tom?
So the biggest thing they need to do is offensively. They just have to be better. They have to make shots. They have to figure out what they're doing against this Milwaukee defense that switched constantly, that finally started to do that, which is something that everybody watching the series have just been screaming that the Bucks should start switching. And they finally did, and it really did mess up the Celtics, and that makes sense. They've got all these guys who are long and athletic and, can defend multiple positions, and the Celtics do too, and that's one of the reasons they've had one of the best defenses in the league. I'm not totally sure why it took the Bucks this long to figure it out.
Yeah, that's right.
So the Celtics really, they need to figure that out. They need to, make their three-pointers. They need to find some way to get into the paint that isn't a post-up, because they were posting up constantly, especially in the first half, especially against switches, and those post-ups just are not efficient shots. Monroe, Horford, they really struggled to get it going, and I just think they need to find some way to get it inside. Get some pick-and-roll action going to the basket. Find ways to kind of space the floor and to kind of collapse the defense. And if they can do that, I mean, everything feeds into itself. The offense, if you make a shot, it's harder for the other team to get back in transition. If you get a stop on the other end, it's easier for you to get out in transition.
Right.
So everything's going to feed into itself. The Celtics just have to be better on both ends, and if they start being better on one end, it'll help on the other.
The transition baskets I thought was crucial, especially in Game 1. You saw the Celtics really feed off of that. Game 2, we saw a little bit of that as well, but it really comes down to the defense. I mean, that's always been the bread and butter of this team, getting out and making those stops, key stops, and it seemed like the roles were reversed in Game 3. The Bucks came out really strong, not only offensively but of course on the defensive end as well. Really rattled guys down low. You saw them sort of push guys up to sort of force them to jack up shots. So that's something that you can look out for in Game 4. But my question also to you, Tom, or another question I have for you is, can we anticipate sort of a shakeup in the lineup? Do you see the Celtics, or I should say Brad Stevens, maybe take Baines out of there, plug in Morris, or maybe plug in another guy? I mean, when things really started going in Game 3, I feel like he sort of put Shemi in there for defensive purposes. Do you see him sort of making a defensive-minded move or adjustment to the starting lineup, or are we just going to see more of the same in terms of player rotations?
I think we'll probably see the same starting lineup. He's stuck with that, basically since everybody went down, with these players.
So we're not
available.
talking about any Gerald Green situation.
I don't think we're talking about Gerald Green.
Okay, like we saw last year. All right.
I could be wrong. I mean, Stevens, that Gerald Green thing came out of completely left field. So
yeah, that's true.
I mean, he could, but I do think that he'll keep Baines in there. I think that he'll have, but he might, play Baines 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Right.
That's something that he will do. He'll start a guy and then he'll just kind of glue him to the bench and play the rotations that he thinks are working better. So we might see more Morris. We might see some more Shemi. He, I mean, he hit a three-pointer on the offensive end, but defensively is where he, does all of his work.
Twice on the floor.
Yeah, exactly. So we could definitely see some switch up, in terms of that. But I would be hesitant to say anything about the starting lineup, because at this point everybody's kind of established in their roles and their rhythms, and I think that there's some real value in that.
Right, absolutely. And there's also real value on seeing guys like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum get it going. I thought they did a really good job with the switches, and we talked about Thon Maker in the last video. I mean, I think he had a little bit to do with that. Him and a bunch of other guys. Obviously on the defensive end, these guys were just much more dialed in Game 3, and I'm sure they're going to try to bring that same type of energy in Game 4 as the Celtics will look to grab a big lead in this one. I mean, a 3-1 lead would be huge in a series like this with two teams that are so evenly matched, in my opinion. And in my opinion, I think if this thing goes 7, don't be surprised. I mean, I always thought that would be the case. I do think the Celtics can come out of this one, but I do think it's going to be a long series, and the series will continue Sunday here from Milwaukee. He is Tom Westerholm of MassLive.com. I am Josue Pavone of CLNS Media. Got nothing but great Celtics coverage for you all weekend. Celtics fans, buck up, don't worry. We'll see what happens in Game 4. In the meantime, tune in to us right here on the CLNS Media YouTube channel for plenty of content to get you ready for Game 4, and of course, plenty of content after the game from Game 4. Once again, he is Tom Westerholm. I am Josue Pavone. This has been the Garden Report for CLNS Media.